Good evening. Tonight we talk about the beginning, where I come from, how I got here, and what happened to me that changed my life. When I was about 4 years old, I went into a coma. Some say I was in the coma for a few weeks, some say 2 months. Nobody's ever really gotten it down pat because the records are gone. It was 1948. They never gave me a diagnosis of what the problem was, but one day I came out of it. And when I came out of it, I was different. My memory was erased. Everything I ever knew, anything I had ever experienced was gone. I didn't know my parents, my brother. I was a stranger in a strange land, and I was alone. Ironically, at this very same time, my spirit guide appeared and began to comfort me. I mean, after all, I was still a child, 4 years old. It's almost 5. And I was scared, frightened, perplexed. I didn't understand what had happened, why nothing looked familiar. When they took me home, my room didn't look like my room. I didn't know I had a room. The house didn't look like the house that I was supposedly born and raised in. So I had to start over from the beginning. But I also had a different kind of consciousness. I had a consciousness available to things of the other side. I didn't have that before. I could play the piano, I had music, and actually that penetrated the coma. It was the only thing that did not get erased, was my ability to play the piano, but everything else was gone. At first I was afraid of Charon even, because remember I told you that that's the name of my spirit guide. I was even afraid of it because it was so different than everyone else around. My parents, my brother, doctors, a nurse across the street. I couldn't connect to their world. I didn't understand it. I was confused. And I was having grand mal seizures, what they call tonic-clonic seizures today. They're witnessed by my brother, by Mrs. Amory out across the street, who was a nurse. But my parents thought I was demon-possessed, since in Matthew and Mark it talks about the person with the demon who had epilepsy that Christ cast out of. Anyway, my parents were convinced that my illness was not an illness, but demon possession. So I went through exorcisms, treatments, biblical readings, what have you. The problem is, they didn't work. So I went quiet about it. I was 6 years old by now, maybe 7, and I thought, shut up. Just don't tell anybody that you have these things, these events, these occurrences. But that didn't quite work either, for my father and mother thought that the method of exorcism that would work the best would be physical punishment for misdemeanors in the area of spirituality. so they would beat me. And it was bad. Today they never could have gotten away with what they got away with. I would be bloody when these beatings were done. Oh, they were doing it for my own good. God save us from people who do the right things. Their reasons were good in their minds. But to me, they were just brutal. Well, one day while I was being what I call attacked, I was being beaten particularly severely, and Charon came to me and said, "Come with me." So my dad was beating on my legs with a strap, and Charon took me on the back of this great, giant black crow, and we flew off into magic lands. We swooped down over red-colored hills and blue skies and green grasses. There were white clouds, and it was stunningly beautiful and peaceful. And faintly in the background, I could hear my father saying, "Have you learned your lesson now?" I couldn't respond because I was still floating on the wings of this giant black crow and enjoying the view. But his voice penetrated deeper and deeper until suddenly he broke through, and I was back feeling the pain on my legs. And he said, "Have you learned your lesson?" I didn't answer him because I didn't have an answer. So he started beating on me again, and he said, "Tell me now, have you learned your lesson?" I didn't answer again. I didn't know what to say. What lesson was I supposed to learn? So I had no answer. And then he looked at me funny, like he knew something. And I think what he knew was he was either going to stop or he was going to kill me or cripple me. And he turned around and walked out. I was alone. Charon wasn't there. I crawled into the bathroom, which was only a few feet away. I washed the blood off my legs. I cried finally. I didn't cry in front of my father, but I cried then. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know what it was that I had done that was so egregious to him and to others. I dried my legs. I crawled back into bed. And at the foot of my bed, there was a spirit standing there. I think it was Charon, but I'm not sure. The spirit said to me, "Be at peace. Be at peace. For I am with you. I am with you always. You are loved. You are cherished by so many. You are loved by so many. So sleep. Sleep. And dreams will come to you of magic lands, of glorious places of another life that's yours and will always be there for you. So sleep now. Sleep now. I closed my eyes and went to far-off places. I dreamed of rainbows and eternity. And I forgot my pain, at least for that night. So that was the beginning of my experiences. For after that, I started having visions on a regular basis, and we will cover that in the next lecture. I just wanted you to hear this introduction so you knew where I was coming from. So good night and blessings to you all.